Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations, and we're going to be painting out this old telephone table. So these obviously don't have much use nowadays as telephone tables, but they do have great use as a little chair and table set in somebody's front hallway where somebody wants to be able to sit down, to be able to put on their boots and shoes. They've got tabletop for catch-all or keys tossed in here. They are also great little spots for maybe you've got a young daughter or granddaughter who wants a little makeup table, but there is limited space. Then this works great as that because she's got a place to be able to store things, but she's got a little tiny vanity top as well. So they can work great for that, or just where you need a small desk for something. But I've seen some people be able to incorporate this into their kitchens where they just want a little spot to be able to check recipes or those kinds of things. So don't despair when you see them that they do have uses beyond the name, the telephone table name. That said, it's very old and it's dirty. It was stored down in a basement and I picked it up from a garage. But the first thing that we're going to do is clean it really well because of that. So I have Fusion's TSP solution. I'm going to be able to mix this with some water as per the instructions. I'm going to get it washed down. So I'm going to clean it well. I'm going to rinse it down. I am going to do a light scuff sanding on it. So I will do that actually before I do the washing, just so I don't have to wash twice. Let it dry, and then we'll be back to begin the painting process. And I'm going to grab one of the new Fusion colors because I want to play with them. So we're going to paint it out with a new Fusion color, just brighten it all up and really show you with these old pieces just what a little bit of paint can do. This may be a slightly different view for you, but what I did promise some people is to take a piece of furniture from beginning to end and just show the basics of it. So I'm not going to be doing any fancy paint blendings. I'm not doing any fancy glazing or fancy waxes. We are just going to be painting. Okay, I will do a decorative finish at the very end, which is optional. But this is really designed for those people that just have stuff that they want to paint and kind of one and done. Let me freshen it up. Let me get it done. And what's involved? How can I do that? Now, the color that I've chosen is a brand new one by Fusion. Just came out. It's called Acadia Pear. And it's this lovely, soft green. Now, usually when I'm painting a piece, what I will do is start by painting it upside down. But because we've got this inside desk, I got to tell you, it is a lot easier to paint it kind of on its side like this so that I can reach in both top and bottom to be able to get that entire space painted out much more easily. And really, in my age, I'm not as flexible as I used to be. So being able to get this painted easily and all kind of unified is really my goal. I just have this propped up on the chair seat here. So what I am going to do is I'm going to paint the inside of the desk and any of the underside and the legs. So they're much easier to do when they're like this. I'm going to paint the underside. I'm going to flip this onto the top, sit it up there, paint the underside, and then flip it over. And we'll come back to be able to work on painting the top. But don't be afraid to kind of turn this in directions that you need to, that makes sense for you to be able to access it the way that you want. I'm just kind of sort of propping it up a little bit on this seat cushion. And this is the other thing. This seat cushion is just old pleather, right? So nothing special about it, but I'm also in kind of the vein of keeping it dead easy. I'm not going to recover it. So we won't be recovering the seat cushion. We will just be painting it, and I'm going to paint it in exactly the same color. So I'm not buying multiple colors. This isn't, let's create an expensive project. We're trying to do this with one color and one color only to be able to show you just what a difference just one color is going to make. So I'm going to finish getting this painted out on the inside. So much easier this way because of that curve and everything, just to be able to get that unified look. I'll get that done, flip it over on its top, paint the underside, and then we'll come back to just kind of take a look at painting the outside of it. But this is so much easier this way than if I was trying to paint it going at it sideways. So again, don't be afraid to kind of tip your project pieces over and access them at different angles if that's what makes your life easier. Now you can see as I'm painting out these sides and where the slats are, I'm focusing more on the underside and the segments that I can reach from painting this side. There'll be still on the inside slat that I'll catch when I turn it around. But I'll paint out what makes sense with it upside down. And my first coat with Fusion is always just a super light coat to be able to get that drying and adhering quickly and well to my wooden surface. And then I will go with my second coat, which will smooth it all out. But really at this stage, what I'm looking for is just something that is, again, nice and smooth. I don't want any drips. I'm not using a lot of paint though. I am making an effort just to, you can see I haven't even re-dipped my brush. I want that nice thin coat to create a base for my project. And that way I'm not going to get any drips that are hardening, and I can, you know, look at how little paint I have on there. I'm not over dipping, and I don't have tons of paint. I'm going to try and use my brush to move that paint around. Once I've got the upside down first layer, I can go and I can focus on getting the first layer on the rest of the piece. And again, here you can see me dip, see just a little bit on the edge, and I'm wiping away the back. And it doesn't look like much paint, but there's a lot of paint on there. And that's all that I need for that first coat. Yeah, I can still see some of the brown through. That's okay. I'm getting the coverage that I need. That little tiny bit of paint goes a lot further than you think. And usually, I would say with beginners, probably one of the biggest mistakes they make is over-painting their piece, meaning that they're using far too much paint, way more than they need to, and especially on coats. I would rather do more really thin coats than, you know, one really super heavy thick coat. I'm going to get a smoother finish and better coverage. So I'm just going to finish whipping out, getting this first coat on here. And then I'm going to paint the seat cushion. And I am going to just paint this pleather seat cushion. I'm going to use exactly the same color and the same process. And I'm going to work it down into, because this is kind of pleather, it's got that fake leather texture to it. So I'm going to work it down into, you can see if I just dry brush, that it pulls out all of those pebbly grains. Well, I want this to have a smoother, more even finish. So I'm going to work that paint down into all of those little nooks and crannies, all those little grooves of it, to be able to get a nice, even finish. And look how bright and new that looks compared to what it started out with. Once your first coat is dry, and I happen to have let this dry overnight just because my day here at the shop was done. So just coincidentally, then you're going to add your second coat. And I don't do my second coat much heavier than my first, but I am focused on making sure that spots where I went a little lighter all definitely get a good coat of coverage. So you'll see me dip my brush in a little bit more often and pay a little bit more attention to making sure that I get all of those spots. But really, I'm just looking to make sure I get a nice, smooth, even finish with the paint so that when it dries, it's going to be nice and smooth and look great, so that if I don't do anything else to it, that it's going to be a perfect finish. Now we're going to do a little bit more to gussy this up. Nothing major, but just know we could be done at the end of this. We could just simply have painted the piece and it's going to look awesome. And what I'll try and do is remember to take a picture of it just painted, so that we have the original photo of what it looked like before paint. We'll have the painted version, and then we'll have the version where we're going to add some transfers. So nothing that requires any major skill. It's just, again, going to be a little bit more of a cash outlay. So depending upon what you're looking at doing with the piece, you may opt for it to be done or not. But second coat of paint, let's let it dry, and then we can get cracking on the zhuzhing part. Just a little bit of paint, and this already looks much better. Nice and clean, just kind of an updated look. Obviously, whatever color you pick would change the look. If you were just leaving it painted, you could stop right here. You could choose to add maybe a little bit of gold on the embellishments around the corners, edges, anything like that. Again, you could have two-toned it, but if you're just looking for a quick, easy fix, grabbing one color that you love that's going to work in your home decor, you could be finished. This is fusion paint, so it seals itself. You could be done. We're going to take advantage of these little curved surfaces on both sides, and I'm going to add a transfer. And I wanted one that was just nice and light and delicate, and that would fit with this green background. So we're going to use the Wander transfer by IOD. And you can see I've got 4 pages. I'm going to focus on these 2 lower pages that are quite light. And they're going to fit in there while still leaving me. Oh, that just about fits in perfectly going sideways. And it comes down to just about in between down here. So I could start it here and have it go round. But if I start it this way, then I keep most of those bigger flowers intact, and I think it's gonna work better. So I'm gonna start out by just cutting away some of the excess at the top so I can take it up a little bit higher. And then I have a better idea of maybe where to cut it off on the bottom so that it's a better fit. All right, so if I take that up directly, and let me just, again, cutting off of this side because you can see that it kind of didn't fit right over, but it could. Okay, awesome. And I want it right up to the top. So I'm gonna want to cut that off just above that line. Awesome. So this is going to fit right in there. It's just almost like a perfect fit. And that gives you an idea of the look. So you can see how it just kind of perks it right up. I have my handy dandy little tool. So I'm going to pull off the white paper backing, and this transfer loves a slick surface, so I want to try and make sure that I get it in the right spot right from the get-go. And that's going to look awesome. All right, and now I just start rubbing. Now, as I start to get this on, I like to just slowly start from one side, lifting the transfer away and making sure that all of my sections are fully adhered. So I just like to pull it away slowly and make sure, so that if I find that I have, like right here, there's a little tip of that white flower that wasn't on, then I'm able to correct that immediately while everything is all lined up, so that I don't lose any of my transfer and I don't have a hard time adding it in later. I'm able to see where perhaps I just didn't get there. Especially with this big a surface, it's easy to not manage to get everything fully rubbed on. So just take your time and slowly make sure that everything's released. Now, once that full transfer is on, then I like to go back with that white backing paper, and I just like to rub over the entire piece. I'm burnishing it in, so rubbing it all in, making sure that every last piece of it has adhered. Ultimately, I will go back and top coat this. I'll be using Fusion Tough Coat to be able to top coat this. I'm going to use matte so that it's in keeping with everything else, because I don't have to top coat everything, but I do need to add the top coat there. So we're going to do exactly the same thing with that next full piece of our transfer, adding it in around this side. I don't want to have lots of florals on the top because it's all about this side, but I did want the pattern to sort of continue up. So the top two sheets on the transfer are the continuation of the ones on the bottom. So for instance, you can see that little stem coming up, that forms the basis of this stem. And that's this piece right here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of line this one up. So it's the continuation of that flower coming up over the top. And then I will take this extra floral and just lay it over a little bit so that we get just a little bit more action happening there. I don't want tons up there. I'm just going to do a little bit. So we're just going to take that up, wrap that over, and we'll have ultimately that leaf coming down the edge too. Okay, now don't be afraid to kind of mix and match a little bit. I have this floral that was over here. I'm going to use this over on the seat. So I'm taking this flower and I'm just going to overlap it here. This just needs a little bit of color up here, kind of to match the color coming from the leaf. And so we're at least going to just kind of tuck this in and around. And these layer on top of each other just beautifully. The only difference is that when you get to those cut edges, just be very careful. Go slow because I don't want to scrape off the transfer that's already down. And this transfer is going right to the edge. I don't have that little bit of kind of the leeway that I would normally. But it does mean I didn't rub that in, so I definitely want to make sure I burnish any of those edges in a little bit more. I still have some other pieces of things that I'm going to cut and add there, but I wanted to show you over on the seat here a little bit of what's happening. I just want a little bit on the seat, again, to kind of coordinate it, bring a little bit of color. So I'm going to do this little vine, and I'm going to add this floral in there in some direction. So I'm going to do the vine first. Now, remember, this is kind of a pebbly surface. It's not flat. So when I'm rubbing it on, I can't just go in one direction and hope that it gets in. I'm also going to want to take it in multiple directions so that that transfer is going to adhere around each of those little individual kind of pebbles. It's going to look like it's transferred down. It just means it's released. It doesn't mean it's adhered to that pleather, that fabric, in every direction. So you want to definitely make sure that you kind of take your time and rub it all over. And ultimately then, we will be sealing this seat as well. Anywhere that there's transfers, we want to add a coat of sealer over top. This is our finished little side table. These kinds of pieces, these old telephone tables, tend to get overlooked because people think of them as being dated, unnecessary. We don't have plug-in phones perhaps anymore. Most people just carry cell phones. So these get trashed more often than not, but they're cute little sturdy pieces and ones that you can easily make over for other uses and purposes. So we've got our transfers going all around the side, and we have a little bit on the seat. These have all been sealed. This becomes a cute little piece for an entrance where you're going to want to sit down to be able to put your boots on and off or your shoes, a place to toss your keys that's not right out in the open. Great if you have a kitchen that has some space so that you've got a place to tuck recipes away or to sit and be able to study them, or have a little homework nook tucked away somewhere. You can put them easily into, a little girl's room, so she has kind of a vanity, but maybe you don't have space for a full vanity, so it's kind of along those lines. They're very versatile. They tend to be kind of cute when done up. And you can see that this didn't take much. A little bit of paint. I added on the transfers afterward. You could have two-toned this with two kinds of paint. This little pleather seat, rather than getting into recovering and gee, what's a color that's going to match, I just painted out. So it doesn't take a lot to be able to make over these pieces, be able to fit them into your home decor with whatever color makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't have to be complicated. Don't overcomplicate some of these things. When you have these older pieces and you want to incorporate them into your home, you'd rather just fix them up a little bit of paint goes a long way. Let me know what you think of this one, guys. You know I love hearing from you. Definitely look forward to seeing you on the next one. And until then, take care.